Carson Hocevar just made the clearest statement yet before COTA. And if anyone thought the Atlanta chaos was about to scare him into changing, it absolutely didn't. The big story right now is not just that Hocevar is still one of the most talked about drivers in NASCAR after Atlanta, it's that he has now shut down the Hendrick rumors, embraced the Hurricane label, responded to the Dale Earnhardt comparisons, and basically told the entire garage he is not about to become a different driver because people are mad. That is why this one matters so much heading into the DuraMAX Texas Grand Prix at COTA. We're going to break down what caused all this noise after Atlanta, what Hocevar said when he reacted to Richard Petty comparing him to Dale Earnhardt, the warning he sent to drivers talking about payback, how he really feels about the Hurricane nickname catching fire, and then the biggest part of all, the shocking contract news that effectively ends a major speculation for now. And honestly, I think this may be the most revealing Hocevar interview stretch we've gotten yet, because he didn't just answer the criticism, he leaned right into who he is. To understand why all of this hit so hard this week, you have to go back to Atlanta. Hocevar's actual race was classic Carson Hocevar. Fast, messy, dramatic, and impossible to ignore. He went 2 laps down early, fought all the way back to the front, got himself into the middle of every late race moment that mattered, contributed to the Christopher Bell overtime wreck, and still finished 4th. That combination is exactly why the garage stays split on him. One side sees a guy who keeps putting himself in winning positions. The other side sees a driver who keeps forcing situations that blow up other people's races. And heading into COTA, he is still 4th in the points, and still one of the hottest names in the sport, even without that first cup win yet. So when Hocevar spoke this week, everybody was listening, because there were basically 4 big questions hanging over him. Is he bothered by older legends comparing him to Dale Earnhardt? Does he care that veterans keep hinting payback is coming? Is he actually embracing the Hurricane nickname now that Fox is using it too? And most importantly, is he staying with Spire, or is this just a stop on the way to somewhere bigger, like Hendrick Motorsports? He answered all 4, and taken together, the answers tell you exactly where his head is before the series heads to Austin. First, the Richard Petty comparison, because that is not a small compliment. Petty said Hocevar reminds him of Dale Earnhardt, not because he is literally the next 7-time champion, but because of how he races on the edge and how he is learning what he can get away with. Petty's words were direct. He said Hocevar is doing things that are not really that wrong, and that Earnhardt learned how to get by with that same kind of style. That is one of the biggest names in the history of the sport, comparing Hocevar's racing instincts to one of the most intimidating and effective aggressive drivers NASCAR has ever seen. And Hocevar's reaction to that was not fake humble. He did not run from it and say, "I don't want those comparisons." He admitted it was cool, and honestly, you could tell he enjoyed it. He said on the Gluckcast that it meant a lot coming from Petty. Talked about how much he loves old races from the 2000s, the 1990s, even the 1980s, and joked that he might not be everybody's favorite driver, but he might be their favorite driver's favorite driver. That is a very Hocevar kind of answer. A little funny, a little cocky, and completely aware of the role he's starting to play in the sport. But the most important part of that answer was not the joke. It was what came right after it, because Hocevar basically made it clear he is not out there trying to imitate anybody. He said he is not behind the wheel asking himself which famous race car driver he wants to play pretend as that day. He said, "I'm just out there racing," and then doubled down with the line that tells you all you need to know. "I am going to be super aggressive." That's the real message. The Petty comparison may be flattering, but Hocevar is not changing his approach to either prove or disprove it. He's saying flat out that the aggression is not some character he's putting on. It is simply how he races. And that leads directly into the second big issue, the people warning him that retaliation is coming. After Atlanta, we heard some version of that from multiple corners of the NASCAR world. Veterans have been saying for days that if Hocevar keeps putting other drivers in bad positions, eventually somebody is going to decide to settle it the hard way. Hocevar clearly hears that talk, and this week he gave a response that was pretty shocking because instead of trying to calm it down, he more or less said, "Fine, but understand the math if you do it on purpose." His exact point was actually pretty sharp. Hocevar said that when he gets into somebody unintentionally, from his perspective, that is one thing. But if someone chooses to settle the score on purpose, then to him that is not making things even. That is escalating it. He said intentional payback would be 2 points on the scorecard versus his 1, which means in his mind, deliberate retaliation is worse than the type of aggressive mistake he believes he is making in the heat of the race. And let's be honest, that is one of the most revealing things he said all week, because it shows how he internally justifies the difference between being too aggressive and being intentionally dirty. He's not saying, "I did nothing wrong." He's saying, "What I do is racing. What you do back on purpose is something else." That does not not mean everybody in the garage will agree with his scorecard, of course. In fact, a lot of drivers probably hear that and think it proves exactly why they get so frustrated with him. But it does tell you he has a framework for it. In his head, he is not out there plotting wrecks. He is out there making split-second high-risk decisions, and if those decisions go wrong, he still sees a difference between that and someone lining him up later with intent. Whether fans agree or not, that is the lens he is using, and it helps explain why he sounds so calm whenever the payback topic comes up. Then there is the Hurricane nickname, which has really started to take on a life of its own. Hocevar knows that, and he sounds more amused by it than anything else. He said he honestly was not sure how much the nickname would keep getting used once the NBC season ended. In his words, he thought, "You're not going to hear that thing till next year in the fall." And maybe somebody would come up with something else. But when Fox used it too, that was the moment he realized the nickname had officially stuck. His reaction was actually pretty funny. He said basically, "Okay, I guess we can make a shirt or something." That is not a guy rolling his eyes at the nickname. That is a guy realizing the branding just became real. More than that, he said he takes it as a compliment. He pointed out that you cannot nickname yourself, it has to come naturally from somebody else. And he sees it as a positive that broadcasters think he is running well enough and is interesting enough, that he is worth naming. He even said it is a good sign for the sport if they think he is adding something to the show. That is a very revealing answer, because it tells you Hocevar is not embarrassed by being the chaos magnet. He understands that being talked about, being branded, and being part of the conversation can be good for his career, as long as the speed backs it up. Now we get to the actual shocking announcement before COTA, and this is the part that changes the long-term conversation the most. Hocevar completely shut down the Hendrick Motorsports rumors, and did it in a way that was about as definitive as you can get in NASCAR. According to the report, Kenny Wallace brought up the rumor that Hocevar might simply be developing at Spire before eventually moving over to Hendrick as a featured star. Hocevar did not dance around it. He answered immediately, and his answer was massive. He said, "I signed a very long-term paper at Spire. I am there for the next decade." That alone is huge. But then he made it even stronger with one of the best contract quotes you'll hear from any driver. He said he wanted the deal written in almost absurdly simple terms. "If I have a pulse, I'll race for Jeff Dickerson." That is not just shutting down a rumor. That is a driver openly attaching himself to an owner and an organization in a way that makes it sound like he sees his future there, not as a stepping stone. And when he explained why, it got even clearer. Hocevar praised Spire's leadership, especially Dan Tauris and Jeff Dickerson, calling them two of the best owners in racing. He said everybody in the organization is bought into Dickerson's vision, and he described the culture there in a way that makes it obvious why he feels loyal to it. He said that in Cup, most drivers are always looking over their shoulder or at the next deal. But with Dickerson, the attitude is not, "Why did you finish 25th? It is, "What do you need? What's next?" To me, that is the real headline underneath the headline. He is not just staying because of paper. He is staying because he genuinely believes the place is being built the right way. That matters a lot going into COTA, because it changes how you view Hocevar's next chapter. If he were playing a short-term game, then every controversial run would just be about building enough stock to get poached by a mega team. But if he is serious about being with Spire for the next decade, then the mission is different. Now the story is about helping build Spire into something bigger while becoming the face of that effort. That makes every top 5, every near win, and every controversy even more meaningful, because he is not auditioning for a future seat. He is telling you this is the seat. And it is not like the performance does not back up the confidence. The On3 report notes that Hocevar has already stacked 15 Cup Series top 10 finishes in his career, including the strong early 2026 results, and of course the big one everyone remembers from just 2 weeks ago. He led on the final lap of the Daytona 500 before getting wrecked from the lead. Add the 4th at Atlanta, the points position, and the fact that his name is everywhere right now, and you can see why the Hendrick rumor even existed in the first place. But Hocevar is basically saying, stop looking past Spire. That is where he plans to be. So what should we watch for now at the DuraMAX Texas Grand Prix at COTA? COTA is a completely different kind of test. Atlanta is momentum, pack lanes, bumping, and side drafting. COTA is braking zones, patience, corner exits, and whether drivers carry emotions from the previous week into tighter, more personal racing situations. That means Hocevar is heading into one of the best possible weekends to prove something. If he comes out and runs clean and fast on a road course, the conversation shifts from chaos guy to all-around threat. If he gets into it with somebody again, the Hurricane story only grows louder. Either way, he is walking into Austin as one of the centerpieces of the entire NASCAR weekend. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Hocevar staying at Spire for the long term is the right move? Or do you still think one day a powerhouse team is going to find a way to pull him away? And do you like the Hurricane nickname? Or do you think the sport is feeding the chaos too much? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more NASCAR breakdowns like this, make sure you're subscribed to NASCAR Central so you don't miss the next one.